I'm here because I helped Liberal Bruce Fanjoy beat Pierre Poilievre in Poilievre's riding near Ottawa. I thought the Liberals would be better, and they have disappointed us on everything from health care to pesticide regulations to oil and gas promotion. It's just been a shock, and I think a lot of people feel very betrayed. I'm certainly one of them. So I want Mark Carney to know that.
Why are you concerned about new pipelines?
Well, we don't need them. I mean, fossil fuels are a 20th century fuel. We need wind and solar. They don't require pipelines. And Carney isn't discussing any of this with his major projects with Indigenous people. It's just a shock. He's a total corporate patsy. And we need clean energy, fair energy, and local energy. And Carney's not delivering that. He's delivering the opposite.
For years, many Canadians believed the Liberal Party was the answer to building a stronger, more affordable future. But now, something unexpected is happening. Some people who once supported the Liberals are publicly saying they feel disappointed with the direction Canada is heading. They're talking about rising grocery prices, expensive housing, healthcare struggles, and the feeling that everyday life is becoming harder. From young Canadians wondering if they can afford a future in this country, to longtime voters questioning whether they made the right choice, frustration appears to be growing. But is this just a few unhappy voices online, or does it represent a bigger shift happening across Canada? Today, we're looking at why some Liberal supporters say they regret their decision, what issues are driving this frustration, and what this could mean for Canada's political future.
Carney sucks. I regret voting for the Liberal Party of Canada in this last election. Carney sucks. I do not care if Pierre Poilievre was going to be worse, because he didn't win, and he is not the current Prime Minister. Carney sucks. And I think all you stupid cultists need to crinkle up your brain again. Use it for critical thought. Look at the very bad things Carney is doing. I don't care about Pierre. He is not the Prime Minister. He also has a leadership review coming up in January. Let's see how well that's gonna go. Now, just shut up. Yelling, "We didn't have any other choice," is not a rebuttal to the bad things Carney is doing right now when he is in office.
I voted for Mark Carney, but I'm disappointed in Mark Carney right now. I say this not as this devoted Liberal, but as someone who has voted Conservative, NDP, and Liberal in the 20 plus years that I have been an eligible voter in Canada. If not voting for those parties federally, then provincially. Like, I've voted everywhere. But in recent years, and especially since Trump America in the last decade, I have decided that I align much more with the left than I do with the right. Even if the right does make some valid points, there are things I'm just not willing to make concessions on. So that's kind of my preamble here. But I will say, with Mark Carney, I think he was still the best option, and I don't regret voting for him. But this whole climate initiative, rolling it back, like saying it's not sustainable and it's too expensive, is so disappointing, and it just sounds so conservative to me. And that was a huge reason why I voted for him, is because I thought that we could have a balance of, you know, what's right for the economy and what's going to be sustainable for the environment moving forward. And I don't know what the answer is truly, because we need jobs, we need fossil fuels, and obviously we want those in Canada. I don't know. Does anyone else feel like this? And there's also that thing hanging over our heads where, like, it almost doesn't matter what Canada does with our emissions, because we've got like China and India that, like, we're like a drop in the bucket compared to them. So I understand that, but I'm just so frustrated because it just feels like Ontario is on fire. Alberta's usually completely on fire. It's bad. It's bad. We're flooding. It's floods and fires, and that's not sustainable either.
I woke up this morning and first thing I see is a NDP lady crossing the floor to Mark Carney's government to give him a majority government, which is truly sad and despicable and sick and horrible. And all of these guys that crossed the floor should be recalled. I'm going to tell you what's happening in Alberta right now. I own this picker truck, and I've worked in the oil patch for 31 years. I've owned my own business in the oil patch for 30 years. My dad owned it prior to that. And now, because of what the Liberal government is doing, companies like this are disappearing. Mom and pa operations are being targeted and destroyed by the poor policies of the Liberal government and because of the retardation of Liberals in general. The fact of the matter is Albertans, you got to take a long, hard look at the facts. The facts is Daniel Smith is trying so hard to help our country, trying so hard to give us who run businesses the opportunity to stay as business owners. But now the federal government has got their majority. They're going to push through, they've already pushed through Bill C6. And that's going to be horrible for Canada, because we're going to end up like the EU. You're going to be getting thrown in jail for praying at an abortion clinic. You're going to get thrown in jail because you would wish somebody a blessed day. You're going to get thrown in jail because you say your Bible doesn't agree with homosexuality. These are some of the things that are going to happen. But the biggest thing that's going to happen is companies like this, we're no longer going to exist. And you know why? Because Carney's for Brookfield. He's not for Canada, he's for Brookfield. And Brookfield wants all of this in Canada, in Alberta. Do you know Carney's Brookfield has a $9 billion pipeline that they are responsible for sending that LNG gas from Australia to Canada, when Canada is sitting on one of the biggest reserves of LNG gas in the world? A lot of it sits under Quebec, but Quebec won't go after it because they believe they're so green. Bullshit. You'll use everybody else's gas and oil, and you will declare that you are green. You're full of crap. You're hypocrites. Every French person in Quebec is a hypocrite. And anybody who wants to sit back and blame what's happening to companies now, what's happening to our groceries, what's happening to our fuel, what's happening to everything that's going up, you want to blame that on Trump? Well, guess what? Trump hasn't been in power in Canada for the last 11 years. Who has? And once you come to that answer, you'll realize it's the Liberal government who's been in power the last 10 years, and they are the ones who have screwed us.
You should always be critical of your elected leaders. I voted for Mark Carney in the last election, and I don't regret my vote because it was the best decision at the time. But I'm seeing what Mark Carney's doing right now, and he is doing some terrible things. Like, he's cutting Indigenous rights. Like, no one is talking about the fact that he is trampling over Indigenous rights by building pipelines, doing so many things that look exactly like what Doug Ford is doing. So I don't care that he's a Liberal.
Mark Carney is doing a terrible job, but the media won't tell you that. They're in the back pocket of the Liberals. They will only take data and information and they will spin it to make the Liberals look like they're doing a good job. You know, they'll say things like Mark Carney's government has added 18,000 jobs in June, but what they won't tell you is 17,500 of those jobs are all part-time seasonal jobs. But this is what they actually should be saying. 7,300 jobs lost for utilities, 7,600 jobs lost for agriculture, 12,900 jobs lost for construction, and 16,800 jobs lost for manufacturing. We are in the peak months for construction and we are losing this many jobs. That is not good. And so many people wonder why things aren't getting better in this country. And it's because things like this. Mark Carney has had the worst GDP growth for a Canadian Prime Minister in at least 63 years. Our economy has been shrinking by 0.05%. And people still approve of him. 60% of Canadians approve of his overall handling of the economy. Now, this is a poll. It might not actually be 60%, but it's a large amount. So I have to ask you, how are things going to get better if we keep electing people that are running our economy into the ground? This is truly insane, guys. You want things to get better, and you're going to continue to vote in the same liberal establishment that has dismantled this economy. It's insane. At some point, Canadians need to look at the data, take their emotions out of play, and be logical about this. The numbers are atrocious. This man has done absolutely nothing to better our country in any way, shape, or form.
One of the biggest reasons behind this frustration is simple: affordability. Many Canadians feel like their income is no longer keeping up with the cost of everyday life. Groceries, rent, and housing have become major concerns for families across the country. And for some people who voted Liberal, the disappointment comes from feeling that the government has not done enough to address these struggles. They say they wanted stability and a better quality of life, but instead, they feel more financially pressured than ever.
Mark Carney just appointed a Conservative MP into the Senate. This guy is never going to beat the Conservative light allegations.
They're okay. They're not as good as Nickelback. They sound like Nickelback light.
Now, he did also appoint one of his most senior advisors, but literally who cares about that? Who is this guy? Richard Martel, a Conservative Quebec MP who now has to vacate his seat, which means the Conservatives haven't just lost one MP, or two, or three. They have lost 5 MPs since the election.
No! That is too many.
This is a party that doesn't just look like it's getting smaller, it is getting smaller. Now, a Liberal Prime Minister appointing a Conservative MP is not necessarily an unprecedented move. The Liberals are clearly widening their tent. It's something that Prime Minister Mark Carney has proved he is comfortable doing. But how much can you widen a tent before it's unrecognizable? What do you make of Mark Carney's recent move, and did it surprise you? Didn't surprise me.
The rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper for Mark Carney, I tell you. So the people in the UK rose up, made their voices heard, and got Keir Starmer to resign. Now, the thing is about that is Canada, by some pretty simple metrics, is in a worse situation than the UK. But why aren't the Canadians rallying in the same way? Our unemployment is worse. Our inflation is worse. And we're actually in a recession. The UK wasn't. So if the people of the UK can rise up and push out a prime minister like that, so can Canada. But here's the thing. So not only is Mark Carney doing worse than a prime minister that just resigned due to pressure of the people, but Liberal MPs have reported that Mark Carney is mean, doesn't listen to any of their ideas, and will yell at them if they do not listen. Now, then just yesterday, Mark Carney was caught on a hot mic saying that MPs are only good for votes. That's all. That's all it is. Mark Carney is just single-handedly trying to run the country like a dictator. He doesn't care. He's abusing the system, and honestly, it's unfortunate, but utilizing the complacency of Canadians. We're just too nice. We don't want to start a fight. We don't want to be protesting this. We just want to have trust in the people that we can elect. And this is what we get in return.
Sorry, Canada, but Mark Carney has left y'all in a bit of a bad spot. What am I talking about? Well, I'll tell you today. The United States Undersecretary of War called out Mark Carney and how Canada has not met its defense requirements that all NATO nations must meet, pointing to this speech that he gave in Davos back in January as the prime example as to why Canada is basically being a turd to the United States of America. See, in this speech, Mark Carney said, we don't need the U.S., actually. We can just go be friends with other mid-range powers, and the U.S. can defend itself on its own dime. The Undersecretary says a strong Canada that prioritizes hard power over rhetoric benefits us all. Unfortunately, Canada has failed to make credible progress on its defense commitments, and the Department of War is pausing the Permanent Joint Board on Defense to reassess how this forum benefits shared North American defense. Yeah, this Permanent Joint Board on Defense has been around since World War II, and Mark Carney has flushed it down the toilet. The Undersecretary goes on to say, we can no longer avoid the gaps between rhetoric and reality, Mark Carney. Real powers must sustain our rhetoric with shared defense and security responsibilities. He goes on to say, delivering on shared continental defense begins by recognizing our shared geography, Mark Carney. Only by investing in our own defense capabilities will Americans and Canadians be safe, secure, and prosperous. So yeah, while Mark Carney would rather participate in this globalist system that isn't working well for anyone, the United States of America is taking North American defense seriously, something Mark Carney is refusing to do. And no amount of friendship with China or Russia or Europe or any of these other mid-range powers that he is just so fond of is going to help Canada.
This comment was left on a post where I was expressing my disappointment in how Carney addressed the passing of Lindsey Graham. Now, there are many ways that the Prime Minister could have been diplomatic and pay his respects, but he went beyond that. Mark Carney is an exceptionally articulate man. Every word is carefully chosen, so I do not believe that this was accidental. He was sending a clear message, and one that does not reflect my values as a Canadian. The Prime Minister works for us. That means we have a responsibility to speak up when we believe the messaging coming from our government does not represent us. Respectfully disagreeing with our leaders is not being disloyal. It's part of living in a healthy democracy.
I don't even look at the comments on videos where I'm being critical of Mark Carney anymore because I am legitimately that tired of so-called progressives defending this man at all costs. Doing mental gymnastics to justify every piece of right-wing rhetoric and policymaking he comes out with. And repeatedly insisting that if I'm criticizing him on that, I just must not know the context. Because hell, if I knew the context, I would clearly know that he's just playing 5D fucking chess, right? Like, no, I'm not listening to that. You can't sit here and pretend that if Pierre Poilievre did any of this shit, you would not be all over that. But because it's Mark Carney, all of a sudden it's okay.
Every single time a Liberal says that the federal government, the federal Liberals, have nothing to do with the cost of living crisis, we need to show them this clip.
Good news, kids. You can take a summer fun time vacation where you're locked in a car for 10 consecutive days, nonstop with no bathroom breaks. And the Conservatives have a plan for you to have that summertime fun. And the cost? Give up the future of the planet, right? Don't worry, kids, about climate change. Don't worry about taking action on the planet. Enjoy your 10 hours in the car and let the planet burn.
You guys conveniently forget that they are literally taxing us into poverty to save the planet and brag about it openly in the House of Commons while they do whatever the heck they want. And Mark Carney's on his literally 100th trip of the year.
But the frustration goes beyond just the cost of living. Some Canadians are also questioning decisions around the economy, energy, healthcare, and the future direction of the country. Some former supporters say they feel their expectations were not met, while others argue that Canada is facing challenges that require a completely different approach. Of course, not everyone agrees. Many Canadians still support the government and believe these problems are part of larger global challenges. But one thing is clear: more people are demanding answers.
So lately I'm seeing a lot of left-wing accounts say stuff like this. People feeling the squeeze and the frustration of the cost of gas, cost of groceries, cost of living. Affordability's been tough on people, regardless of the political stripe. This is one issue that does not discriminate in this country. This man, Guy, or Guy, I don't know, we gotta stay bilingual or I might lose my income in this country. He said this: anyone else fed up with being squeezed every time you leave the house? Gas, groceries, everything. I'm spending an extra $160 a month on gas alone just to go to work. Unbelievable. But here's the thing, folks. I hate to break it to Guy, I hate to break it to him here, but it's about to get worse tomorrow. As the industrial carbon tax is set to increase yet again, which is funny, because a year ago to the day, well, the consumer carbon tax was zeroed. And this is a good reminder that they kept an industrial carbon tax and also replaced the consumer carbon tax with a clean regulation fuel standard, which is the same thing as a tax. So, as most countries now are entertaining the likes of removing taxes temporarily off their fuel, Canada is looking to increase it. So when I see guys like Guy, complaining about the cost of living and affordability, well, I have to remind him, hey, you continue to prop up a government who continues to do that to you and does nothing to help you. So, happy April 1st tomorrow, and enjoy the increase on the industrial carbon tax that impacts the entire supply chain here in this beautiful country of Canada.
To all Canadians, we have some breaking news, and this could be good news for Canada. 14 Liberal MPs are not very happy with Mark Carney and the pipeline MOU he's drafting or done with Alberta. Where is CTV? Where is CBC? Talking about all those floor crossers when it was time for Conservatives. Why aren't they talking about this? All 14 MPs, probably even more, that are very, very stubborn and only want to talk about the environment and protect the environment and First Nations. They're being very silenced and not heard from their leader. Is Mark Carney going to lose his majority? Let me know in the comment. Please like, please share. It really helps me out.
The left hates Mark Carney. What is going on? What is going on?
I'm not saying it would be good, but if we had a conservative government, at least people wouldn't be in denial about it. You know, we wouldn't have all of these people who are Liberal supporters twisting themselves into pretzels to justify what Mark Carney's doing if it was Pierre Poilievre doing them. They would be screaming and opposing them. And there would be way more mobilization against these policies.
That is a hot take to say that they are looking at some of the things that Mark Carney is doing right now and thinking to themselves, maybe we could have done with Pierre Poilievre as the prime minister instead of, and it's not from a perspective of, oh, he's going to do, stuff that they want. It's more from the perspective of, I mean, he couldn't be any worse for them and their interests than Mark Carney is right now. I remember thinking to myself, that is a bonkers take. Killer B said maybe because he called the slaughter of Iranian children worth it. To be fair to Mark Carney, he did not say the killing of Iranian children was worth it. What he said was the war on Iran waged by the United States was worth it, right? Worth it to ensure that the Iranians do not get a nuclear weapon. So why are the progressives hating on Mark Carney? The reason why they're hating on Mark Carney is because they remember that Mark Carney took their lunch in the last election. And they know that if they're going to make a return in the next election, they need to eat away at Mark Carney's credibility. And to be fair, Mark Carney is helping them. Mark Carney is helping them to eat away at his credibility because of some of the things he has done. I would even go as far as saying that the people who vote for the NDP, I would argue that they're nostalgic for Trudeau-era policies. I would argue that the people who currently support the NDP would very much love for Justin Trudeau to be in office right now. Because, what did Justin Trudeau give the supporters of the NDP? The NDP supporters would like a government that virtue signals around the world, right? They would like a government, they would like a government that wags its finger all across the world and tells countries, and judges other countries for their actions, right? Which is how Justin Trudeau ended up in a situation where we didn't have any meaningful relationship with China, with India, with Saudi Arabia, you name it.
You voted for him 3 times and you didn't know that this was going to happen, and now you really regret your decisions. Well, this message is for you. I hope the guilt that you feel weighing on your conscience disfigures you in a way that is rivaled only by Caroline Levitt's migrating botched lip filler. I hope that your guilt keeps you up at night. I hope that you choke on it. And lastly, I really need you to understand this part. Fuck you.
At the end of the day, politics is always about expectations. People vote because they believe a leader or a party can improve their lives. They vote because they want better opportunities, affordable housing, good jobs, reliable health care, and a future where their children can succeed. And when people feel like those things are becoming harder to achieve, disappointment naturally follows. The conversation happening in Canada right now is bigger than just one political party. It's about trust. It's about whether Canadians feel heard. It's about whether the decisions being made today are actually improving life for everyday people. Some Canadians believe the current government is moving the country in the right direction and that these challenges require patience. Others believe a major change is needed because they feel the problems have become too serious to ignore. And that is the reality of democracy. Governments are elected, but they are also judged by the people they serve. Whether someone supports the Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, or any other party, the same question remains. Are Canadians better off than they were before? Because at the end of the day, people care less about political promises and more about their daily reality. Can they afford their home? Can they pay their bills? Can they build a better future? Those are the questions shaping conversations across Canada right now. So I want to hear from you. Do you think Canada is heading in the right direction? Or do you think Canadians are ready for a major political change? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And remember, keep the conversation respectful. Different opinions are part of democracy. If you enjoyed this video and want more discussions about Canada, politics, the economy, and the stories affecting everyday people, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.